المجال الوظيفي في أوروبا الوسطى وغيرها من المناطق. Welcome Dr. Roberto, please.
Including papers dealing with SME financing, private guarantee schemes, financial construction, and other topics of relevance. So that will take the first part of my presentation. I will talk about what were the results of this SME finance survey that we did. It's 130 banks in this region, together with the Union of Arab Banks. We're going to talk about the basic results of this study, the strategy that the banks do to conduct SME finance, and how they manage the risks of this portfolio. Then I will draw conclusions and implications for the region as a whole. In the second part of my presentation, I'll try to zoom in the Palestine and provide an overview of how SME finance in Palestine stands by comparison with other countries in the region. And finally, identifying the tentative agenda, giving a few ideas for promoting more SME finance in the region, in the Palestine. Now, let me talk about this survey. This survey was the first attempt to measure SME finance in the MENA region. The very first attempt. The numbers did not exist. We didn't know which country was more, which country was less. We had just anecdotal evidence, but we did not get hard data. So we conducted with the Union of Arab Banks a survey conducted in late 2009, early 2000, with a good coverage, 140 banks in the region, out of a total of 300 banks, members of the Union of Arab Banks, responded to the survey. I took time to compile the survey. 57 banks from the GCC, 82 from the non-GCC region. We had almost 30 state banks and 110 private banks responding to the survey. The survey is very representative of MENA banking systems. We got, in every country, on average, more than 2/3 of banking assets responding to the survey. So let's see what we get. Let's review the main results. Most banks in MENA are, to some extent, engaged in SME lending, but the volumes are low to moderate relative to other parts of the world, the emerging world or developed world. Weaknesses in financial infrastructure are constantly blamed as a major obstacle to SME finance in the region as a whole. Problems in financial reporting of SMEs, problems in credit reporting, problems in creditor rights, enforcement and seizure of collateral, registration, etc. These are usually blamed as the major problems. Some banks, some individual banks, are more aggressive and they have done more this takes time, sometimes. Therefore, many countries were resorting to state banks. They are telling their state banks to lend to SMEs and take the risk. Some countries prefer to make use of credit guarantee schemes. Some countries are doing both. And we reviewed how effective these interventions have been. Now, let's look at some basic numbers, very basic numbers. What we see here, we see a dark blue. Let's see up first. The upper, where is the color? The upper diagram, we see averages for the GCC, the Gulf countries, and averages for the non-GCC. Here in light blue, we have the average share of SME lending in total lending. In the non-GCC, in the GCC, the share was only 2%. Only 2% of the loan portfolio in Gulf banks was directed to SME. We were really extremely surprised with this result. A result which was confirmed with bankers and policymakers in the region. In the non-GCC, the number was substantially higher, 13% of the portfolio. But still, as you're going to see, relatively low by comparing with other emerging regions. We asked the bank in the survey, what is your loan run target? How is this, you are 13 now, where do you want to go? And on average, they told us in the GCC, I want to go to almost 27%. Was the, I really want to expand something like that. Because I see this as a potentially profitable business. But they were still far away from the target. Same thing in the GCC, the target was lower. Because they consider that this is an undiversified economy and not produce a miracle here. But I also, myself, I want to lend more to SMEs. We differentiate the state and private banks. Surprisingly, we did not see too much difference between what state and private banks were doing and what they wanted to do. Now, let's not compare Vienna with other regions. What we have here? Here we have the GCC average, 2% only of total loans going to SMEs. Here we have the overall MENA average, GCC and non-GCC combined, 7.6% of total lending to SMEs. Then we have the higher average of non-GCC countries, 13%. And you can see here, it's still low by compare with other surveys, other data sets that we have been conducting over the years. Lower than emerging countries and lower than the Gulf countries. What does this comparison shows or suggests? There's still a long way to go. There is scope for more SME lending in the region. The interesting thing is that the numbers, we think it's not a coincidence. The numbers that the non-GCC banks quote as their target, their final loan run target, is very close to the numbers that the developed countries have in SME lending in their portfolios, around 27-28%. Now let's look at country conditions. Here we are showing individual country situations. We see Morocco, and we see that Morocco, let me talk about Yemen later, because Yemen here is a bit deceiving. Morocco and Lebanon will appear, we're going to see in different graphs, as two countries that have done more in terms of SME lending. Yemen appear here as high, but the share of credit in Yemen is so low. When we take that into account, SME lending is also low. So let's hear what we see. Morocco and Lebanon are on the top side. Then we see Tunisia and Jordan occupying an intermediate range. Then we see Palestine leading the other group of countries here, including Egypt, Syria. And then we see the GCC countries. This is more or less the ranking of countries in terms of progress in expanding SME finance. Now, here, we're asking ourselves, are you already engaged in SME finance? And lots of them said, yes, we are engaged in SME finance. Then we asked, do you have an SME unit, a dedicated unit to conduct SME lending? And the share of responses suddenly came down. And it came down more for the state banks than for the private banks. And that was an interesting indication. State banks were being pressed to conduct SME lending without having organized themselves well to do it. So the first indication that it was really a policy related. Second question, how do you select your MPs? What are your strategies for selection? And the most important, both for private and state banks, the most important was good prospects. They saw a profitable business line that was still untapped. We asked for the questions, and they were not nearly as important as this one. Funny enough, we asked for export orientation because in some surveys conducted in Asia, that was an important answer. Here it was not. Then we asked them, what are the major obstacles for further SME finance? And not surprisingly, if you go through the answers, it was financial infrastructure. The banks are complaining about, both for state and private, let's look at the private here. They're complaining about SME lack of transparency. They're complaining about not reliable collateral by SMEs. They're complaining about credit information systems not being good, weak creditor rights. In other words, all the infrastructure for finance, the legal fundamentals for finance, information and rights. The banks were holding this as a very important obstacle. You may say to me here, but this is obvious. Any country, you should expect this answer. The answer is no. This survey was conducted in Latin America and other regions, and these factors here did not appear nearly as high as they appeared in America. Now, more on obstacles. We try to get more on the area of enforcement. The upper rectangle shows the problems that they have to fix collateral. The lower slide shows the problems that they have in movable collateral. Let's look at private banks. You see an increasing number of banks responding problems in the area of registration, movables being much worse than fixed, in the area of enforcement, seizing the collateral, several banks reporting problems here, and again, movables more serious than fixed, and finally, the disposition of sale of collateral. All the banks reporting problems in these three areas. Then we started talking about risk management. And some banks, we asked the banks, to what extent you say SMEs are risky. Do you require more collateral from SMEs? Not surprisingly, the private banks said yes. The state banks said no. Again, an indication that state banks were being used as a policy intervention to try to get more SME lending in the countries. We tried to take a look at the use of credit scoring systems, internal, external, ratings, and use of automated application processing systems. What we see here, all the banks report some type of rating methodology. But when we interviewed them, they said, yes, we have a rating methodology, meaning we know the firm and we know the owner, and we kind of put a rating there. In other words, there was no quantitative system, data intensive, coming from the credit registry with a model producing scores for the banks. The credit score response was actually very low, lower in the state banks than in the private banks. Very few banks in the region all used automated approval procedures. There was simply not enough quality and quantity of data and robustness of modeling allowed them to do that. So, let's go on with this. Yes. Banks in stronger legal environments lend more to SMEs. This has been statistically tested. It's not just a survey response. It has been econometrically tested. We put the data together, it's a large sample, we put all the variables there, and this result actually came very strongly. And we tried to measure this variable in 5 or 6 different ways. You increase legal protection for creditors, lenders will lend more. Credit registry, the credit information had a small effect on SME lending per se, but a very strong share on the share of long-term SME lending in total lending. So it works as well. And finally, that was not a surprise to me, but it was, you cannot realize how much this issue of credit guarantees was a debate inside the World Bank Group, with half of the people simply not believing it. They say this is a waste of time and resources, and half of the people saying yes, I mean it can help, depending on how it's designed. We tested this as well, and this variable came out extremely strong. The countries who have larger, more established credit guarantee schemes, such as Lebanon and Morocco, they have more SME lending as well, controlling for all the other factors in the country. So now let's go to the Palestine. These are the implications for MENA. I think we can skip that because we have already discussed this. And now let's zoom in MENA. Let's look at 2 indicators here. Let's look at the share of SME loans in total loans. This is the graph here on the left. Here is the Palestine in the middle, there, occupying the middle position. This graph we saw before. We showed it in the previous presentation. We see here the leaders being, forget about Yemen for a while, Lebanon and Morocco occupying a leading position. Then you have Tunisia and what's this country here? Jordan occupying intermediate position, and you have Palestine leading the other pack below the others. When you look at the share of SME loans to GDP, then the Palestine loses 2 positions. Why? Because the ratio of credit to GDP in Palestine is lower. So even though the share of SME loans to total lending in Palestine is intermediate to moderate, the share of SME loans to GDP in Palestine is low. The next graph, I'm sure you are very much aware of that. Here shows why. The overall private credit to GDP in Palestine is still low. I understand it has been growing over the past few years, and so has the ratio of loan to deposits been growing in the past few years. But the share of credit to GDP and the loan to deposit ratio in the Palestine, loan to deposit in Palestine also, both are very low, which shows there are other factors that go beyond SME lending, the risks of SME lending that explain why the ratio of SME loans to GDP is low. Factors related to the overall legal framework and related to risk, which are unique to the Palestine. But I understand these things have been increasing. The loan to deposit has been increasing, and the credit to GDP as well. But it's important to know that. Question is why? Now let's look at financial infrastructure, how good it is. Are there still gaps? What is there to be done? We looked in this research of 2 years that we did for the MENA region, we looked at every piece of financial infrastructure. The credit registry in the Palestine appeared very well, was well evaluated during this review. You know that inside the banking AFC there is a big debate about public credit registries versus private credit bureaus. Some people don't believe in public credit registries, some people only believe in the private They think only the private sector is going to bring depth and breadth of information. And some people think, no, there are public bureaus that are well designed. They are designed almost as private bureaus. And I was caught in the middle of this crossfire. I didn't even know there was a debate about public versus private sector in this area, but there is one. Well, it turns out that two registries in the region, two public registries, were well evaluated. One was Palestine and the other was Oman. And apparently those two registries were designed from the start like a private credit bureau would have been designed. So it came out very well rated in terms of design. In terms of coverage, it looks still low. The coverage of the potential borrowing population, the number of adults in age to borrow, which are accounts in the registry, in comparison with the total potential population, looks low in Palestine. I was told yesterday that there is a problem with the numbers. This is a doing business database. It follows a survey. Might have a problem there. I don't know. If there is a problem, I would suggest to the Palestine authorities call the attention of the doing business administration to say that there is a problem. Right now, it's indicating that there is a problem of coverage. In other words, the registry may be very well designed in doing credit scores, lots of good things, but there's still not enough information on the potential borrowers. Now, legal rights. This is probably the weakest part. And legal rights, we're talking basically about the secured lending framework, right? And we're talking about, if you understand, if you go through the way this index is designed, they try to capture all the elements of the chain of secured lending, from the legal framework, from the quality of the fixed and movable registries, either they are centralized, paper-based, easy to access. They take a look at whether it can be accessed without a problem. They took a look at enforcement. They took a look at disposition of assets. They go through the whole chain. And here, the Palestine did not fare very well. And this is important. This is very important as information for a creditor, because the information in Basel II terminology, if you want to use Basel II terminology, good information reduces the probability of default. Good secured lending reduces the loss given default. If you have a loss, if you have collateral and you can actually enforce on it, your recovery ratio is going to be high. So the two things, the two pieces are important, and this one here looks still particularly weak. Now, credit guarantee scheme. Now, this I know is a theme that triggers passions. I have here my friend Uri, who was one of the first managers of the guarantee scheme, my young colleague, who is now the second one, and we were over dinner discussing. I did not have the slides that I'm going to present today, but they kind of, excited me in the conversation yesterday, so I introduced 3 or 4 additional slides here. Please bear with me. If you think it's too long, please blame on them. So, how about the credit guarantee scheme with Palestine? We had a separate survey for all the schemes. We sent a questionnaire to try to understand how they operate and try to understand how they compare with other schemes around the world. It came out very well evaluated. Simple design, conservative parameters, in terms of eligibility criteria, maximum loan amount, 60% coverage ratio, reasonable fees, some efforts to provide TA to banks. The initial outcome seemed reasonable, but we noticed there was probably scope to grow further, take some additional risk, and enhance the impact of the scheme. And we're going to show that the stock of guarantees is below the Vienna average, conservative scheme designed conservatively, has been well managed, but here when you look at these indicators, we sense there is some scope for growing more, take some additional risk, keeping the loss ratios under control, but increase additionality and outreach. So let's look at some of the graphs. These are outstanding guarantees here. MENA countries are in green, other countries outside MENA are in blue. You see some huge schemes, especially in Asia. Asian schemes are gigantic. Japan, Korea, Malaysia, etc. Then Netherlands, the largest scheme in the region, followed by Tunisia and Morocco. These are the largest ones. This is the MENA average. You can see the Palestine here, more or less around the average, a little bit below. Now, let's look at another indicator, the number of guarantees issued per year divided by per million population. To compare countries, we have to have a metric, and this is the metric that people use. Here, one thing that caught our attention, the number of guarantees issued per year in MENA as a whole, is low by compared with those in other countries. The average value of the guarantee in MENA is high by comparison with those in other countries. We spend a lot of time trying to understand these patterns. It looks like the MENA PCGs. There is something about additionality. Are they really targeting the enterprise that need it the most? They provide lower numbers and higher values. By comparison with the benchmark, is this a PCG that provides additionality? We spent a lot of time trying to understand this question. The multiplier, the number of guarantees outstanding to the equity. You can see here Palestine is the lowest, or was the lowest at that time. And finally, the net loss ratio here, Palestine is also the lowest. Very conservative scheme, managed conservatively, served them well, nothing wrong with being conservative. But the question now, since there is a pressure for SME finance, can the scheme do a bit more, still maintaining its sustainability, maintaining its good numbers? And our answer is yes, there's strong scope for doing a bit more. Finally, what do we conclude from all that? From this desk work, have to be humble here, having been in the region for a year and a half, so I'll be humble. My recommendation, I have talked to colleagues, I have read recent reports, and I would suggest the following considerations, consideration. Strengthening financial infrastructure is the first thing that any country must do. I never saw any good analysis of the quality of financial reporting in the Palestine or in any other MENA country. Everybody complains about opacity of SMEs. We're talking here about accounting, auditing, and disclosure of financial statements. There was a big debate when we were doing the report for the G20 report. What would be the standards? And in the bank, the FC, there was a big debate. Should we promote IFRS for SMEs? And the answer from our colleagues was no, don't do it, because many developed countries are not adopting this. This is too complicated. Some developed countries have adopted simpler standards for SMEs, but some standard you have to introduce. There has to be a financial statement, balance sheet, cash flow, an income statement that is understandable to the banks can understand, and therefore can evaluate the risk there. In some countries like Germany, they actually designed this standard in consultation with the banks. Ask the banks, what is the minimum that you want to see in these financial statements? And they reached an agreement with the banking community, and that's how the standards were designed. Second, credit reporting. I see a problem of coverage in the data. If this problem is real or not, I don't know, but if it's real, I think it has to be dealt with. If it's not real, I think you have to alert the DB administration is an interesting technique pioneered initially by Mexico, the NAFIN technique, that is extremely attractive because it allows economies of scale and the use of factoring a much better credit risk because you work with the large firms. You provide credit to the large firm, and the large firms provide then repays its range of suppliers. It's a much more interesting scheme for reaching SMEs than the traditional factoring scheme. And finally, enhancing the impact of the credit guarantee scheme. I think the scheme is essentially sound. I think the scheme is sound. What can be done? I think I understand from Woody now that when we did the survey, the scheme did not cover startups, now apparently it does. The scheme is taking more risk, of course. They have to see how we're going to design that segment of the portfolio, which is risky without credit history. The coverage ratio might have to be increased, and the fee as well. So we saw in the credit guarantee scheme a scope for expansion. The scheme is robust, can take some additional risk until it finds its equilibrium. An equilibrium that will retain the sustainability and at the same time improve its outreach. With that being said, with these humble recommendations for your appreciation here, thank you very much for being here this evening.
جايب معلومات من ضمن بزنس ما اعرفش ليش
بحب اليوم نشارك مع زميلي حنان الصحاري نحكي لكم على تجربتنا خلال الخمس سنوات الماضيه من ناحيه برامج ضمان القروض اللي نديرها. اعطيكم نبذه بسيطه اولا عن البرنامجين. الصندوق الاوروبي الفلسطيني لضمان القروض تم تاسيسه بال 2006 تقريبا البرنامجين مع انه تركيبتهم تختلف اهدافهم شبيهه جدا. البرنامجين اهدافهم توسيع قاعده الائتمان للمشاريع الصغيره ومتوسطه الحجم بفلسطين عن طريق تقديم ضمانات للبنوك المشاركه للمشاريع اللي تفتقر الضمانات الكافيه، بالاضافه لتغيير منهج وثقافه الاقراض في فلسطين لتتناسب اكثر مع احتياجات واوضاع المشاريع الصغيره المتوسطه. توقعاتنا كانت وما زالت وعم نشوف نتائجها هي انه اذا اعتبرنا الدائره البيضاء هي حجم الاقراض للبنوك اللي كانت مرتاحه فيها، اللي كانت تتناسب مع وضع السوق ووضع سياسات الاقراض المصرفيه. بدعم من برنامج الضمان اذا قدرنا نوسع قاعده المال النسبيه، واذا اخذنا الاعتبار انه نشتغل مع عده بنوك، قدرنا بهالطريقه انه نوسع قاعده المال ونزيد التمويل للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه الحجم في فلسطين. شروط البرنامج شبيهه برضه جدا، تخفيض البرنامجين 60% ل 70% من اصل الدين. حجم القروض تتراوح ما بين $5,000 امريكي ونص مليون دولار امريكي. التمويل لراس مال عامل او اصول ثابته. فتره التمويل تتناسب مع غايه التمويل وقدره السداد للمشروع الصغير المتوسط الحجم. اي نشاط تجاري او اقتصادي، ففي عندنا قروض في قطاع الزراعه، في قطاع الصناعه، في جميع القطاعات اللي زميلي حنا راح يقدم لكم اياها لاحقا. بالاضافه انه ناخذ بعين الاعتبار انه قطاع المنشات الصغيره والمتوسطه الحجم في فلسطين تتقسم لجزئين، جزء مسجلين في وزاره الاقتصاد ومسجلين كشركات او منشات، والقطاع الغير رسمي كونه في عده مشاريع اللي بتقدم نشاطات في الاقتصاد الفلسطيني ولكنها مش مسجله رسميا في عده جهات. كل المناطق الجغرافيه بفلسطين شامله تحت البرنامجين، بالاضافه انه مشاريع جديده برضه مشموله في البرامج الضمان. آلية العمل بالبرنامجين برضه شبيهه جدا، بحيث انه الموافقه تتم قرض بقرض، بحيث انه البنوك المشاركه بتقدم قروض للمشاريع الصغيره ومتوسطه الحجم اللي تتناسب مع شروط البرنامج، واللي على اساسها كل برنامج بيقدم موافقته على ضمان المشروع او على ضمان المشروع. الشيء اللي احنا نفتخر فيه اكثر شيء اظن غير عن تقديم الضمانات من 60 ل 70% هي برنامج الدعم الفني اللي تقدمت، ان كانت من ورشات عمل او بفعل نقاشات ومشاركتنا مع البنوك المشاركه. الهدف الاساسي من وراء هو انه تمويل منشات صغيره ومتوسطه الحجم تختلف كليا عن التمويل لشركات كبيره وتختلف كليا عن التمويل للقروض الشخصيه. بدها شويه تحليل، المعلومات المتوفره عاده مش موجوده، نوعيتها مش زي نفس النوعيه اللي بتيجي من الشركات الكبيره وهلم ولا جر، ولكن مع شويه دعم فني، مع شويه تريننج، موظفين البنوك قدراتهم على التمويل، قدراتهم على التحليل، قدراتهم على دراسه المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه تحسنت بشكل ملحوظ خلال الخمس ست سنوات الماضيه. كل طبعا البرنامج مش ببلاش، وهذا الشيء انا وحنا دائما نسمعه من البنوك انه رسوم الضمان عاليه واذا في مجال نتفاوض فيها، ولكن فيش شيء ببلاش في الدنيا. الشيء الاساسي اظن البرنامجين برضه مهم بالنسبه لنا انه بحاله خلصتنا من القروض المتعثره راح ياخذ وقت وما راح ينجح المشروع. تحدياتنا ما كانت سهله وما زالت موجوده. انا صار لي هون حوالي 5 سنين عم بدير برنامج ضمان القروض، وفي هذه الفتره زوجتي انتبهت اني بلشت اشيل. فقلت لها الشيء هون من البنوك والشيء هون من المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. بس التحديات مع البنوك هي انه واضح في البدايه المشاريع المتوسطه والصغيره الحجم ما كانت من استراتيجيات النمو في البنوك. البنوك كان تركيزها وما زال في بعض البنوك، وهون انا عم بحكي بشكل عام عن جميع البنوك الفلسطينيه، مش عم نبين نحدد هو الكوربريت ولاحقا القروض الشخصيه اللي كانت تكون مدعوم برواتب الموظفين. التفكير على قطاع المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة أجد أن المخاطرة عالية فيها، الشغل المطلوب عليها مكلف، الأرباح فيها غير مجدية، وجهة راس. أسهل لي إنه أعطي قرض لموظف اللي راتبه محول عندي اللي بقدر وقتها ضمن سياسة البنك أو بالوقت بعطيك 10 أضعاف راتبك أو 20 مرة ضعف راتبك، مما انك تقعد تشتغل مع منشأ صغير متوسط الحجم اللي هو مش عارف بالضبط شو اللي بده اياه وكيف بده اياه وكيف بده يسدد لك اياه وفيش عنده اي ضمانات يعني. بالاضافه انه سياسات البنوك نفسها ما كانت جاهزه لتمويل المنشآت الصغيره، ان كانت من ناحيه ضمانات وتخطيط الضمانات المطلوبه، ان كانت من ناحيه البرودكتس اللي بتتقدم للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه والموجوده. واخيرا التسويق للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه عاده ما كانت فعاله جدا. الكل بيشكي انه البنوك متحفظه، الكل بيشكي انه البنوك بدها ضمانات، ولكن خلال 5 سنوات السابقه احنا في برامجنا لاحظنا ان صار في تغيير جوهري في البنوك، البنوك مستعده للاتجاز ومستعده للجزء، ولكن هذه الرساله ما اظن وصلت بشكل واضح للمنشآت الصغيره المتوسطه الحجم، انه في مجال اذا عندك مشروع منيح، اذا عندك دراسه على مشروعك، اذا عندك شويه البيانات لمشروعك انك تقدر تتوجه للبنوك. هذه بتجيبنا الشيء الثاني الجهه الثانيه اللي هي المشاريع الصغيره. زي ما بقول ما الايد لحالها ما بتزقف، او زي ما انا بقول المره دي دايما takes two to tango. البنوك من وحدها مش راح تقدر تحل مشكله التمويل، والحكومه من وحدها مش راح تقدر تحل مشكله التمويل. المشاريع الصغيره وانا برايي المتواضع بعد 5-6 سنوات تجربه فلسطين انه هون العقبه هي في المشاريع الصغيره المتوسطه الحجم. انا ما بعرف اي مشروع راح مجدي في عنده شويه بنات وحتى عنده ضمانات مش تكون كافيه يتوجه لاي بنك والبنك رفضه. البنوك بدها تربح، البنوك ماخذه قرارات انها تستثمر وتكون موجوده بفلسطين مع كل سلبياتها ومع كل ايجابياتها، الوضع الصعب والوضع تفتقر الدورات والخبرات الإدارية والمالية، وهذا الشيء إلها حلول، مش إنه شيء ما لهوش حلول. ولازم أظن يكون في نوع من الحماية من طرف المشاريع الصغيرة والمتوسطة الحجم. احنا عم نشوف عدة حالات إنه فيش فرق ما بين المصاريف الشخصية ومصاريف الشغل. فيش عدة مشاريع بتاخذ قروض باسم الشخصي وعم تتصرف بالقروض أو تتصرف بأموال المشروع لأنها لغايات عائلية، لغايات أفراح وwhatever. بس المهم بصفي إنه لازم يكون في فرق بين المصروف للشركة أو للمشروع والمصروف الشخصي. النقطة الثانية عم نشوفها إنه فيش تنوع وفيش في السوق. معظم المشاريع الصغيرة المتوسطة عم نشوفها مركزة التجارة أو في الخدمات أو في الصناعات الخفيفة. نادر نتغلب كثير، نادرا جدا ما نلاقي مشاريع ريادية أو نلاقي مشاريع في مجالات جديدة اللي عم تطلب تمويل، وبالذات مثلا المشاريع النسوية. إذا نطلع احنا على نسبة مشاركة النساء في اقتصاد فلسطين متدني جدا مقارنة مع الدول الثانية حتى في الشرق الأوسط. I think المشاريع الصغيرة المتوسطة الحجم اللي هي زي ما قالوا سابقا 90 أو 95 أو 80% من سوق فلسطين بغض النظر هذا هو سوقنا، وفي حاجة كبيرة وفي عدة قدرات اللي نقدر وحلول اللي نقدمها إياها. لا بحب هلا خلي زميلي حنا الصحار يحكي لكم على شو نتائج البرنامجين خلال ال5 سنوات السابقة، زائد شو اقتراحاتنا احنا كبرامج نشتغل مع عدة بنوك كيف نقدر نحسن ونطور الهدف للمشاريع والتمويل للمشاريع الصغيرة. شكرا.
يعطيكم العافية. بحب أشكر زميلي رامي على المقدمة المرتبة. في البداية لما طلبوا منا أن نسوي برزنتيشنز على صناديق ضمان القروض، انطلب إنه كل سكيم نسوي برزنتيشن، واتفقنا أنا ورامي إنه نسوي برزنتيشن واحدة، لأنه إحنا بنشوف إنه هدول المشروعين بيكملوا بعض ولمصلحة القطاع الأساسي ولمصلحة البنوك. فحطينا الأرقام كلها مشتركة مع بعض بدافع إنه نفرجي كيف إنه الجارانتي سكيمز الموجودة في فلسطين هي ساهمت وساعدت إنه نوصل لفئة مستهدفة كانت في السابق مهمشة، كانت ما بتقدر تاخذ تمويلات بالمجمل. أنا طبعا بحكي كانت ما بتقدر تاخذ تمويلات بدون مساعدة الضمانية. لحديث اليوم احنا قدرنا نوقع 12 اتفاقية من 18 بنك على سلايد 19 18، وعدد الجارانتيز كان عندنا 3115 لون جارانتي ابروفل. يعني وقت ما بلشت المشاريع تبعتنا سنة 2006 لغاية اليوم تم الموافقة على 3115 لون جارانتيز، وكان مبالغها 171 مليون دولار بالمجمل. ومن الشغلات اللي نجحت فيها مشاريع ضمان القروض انها كمان واحدة اول ما فكرنا انه الجارانتي بتساعد انه البنوك تعطي لهذه المشاريع، بس كمان كان في شغله عامل كثير مهم مش موجود، انه البنوك كانت اكثر مركزه حالها انها تعطي يا اما كونسيومر لونز يا اما قروض كبيره، والكل كان يفتش على القروض الكبيره وما كانوش شايفين انه المشاريع قطاع المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه بلشت تطلع شوي شوي. يعني الجراتي بتبلش بأول شيء زباين البنوك اللي بده قرض أو يوسع التسهيلات تبعته، بس الضمان مش كافية، فبالتالي هذا الزبون بيجي للصندوق. فبالبداية كان عندنا عدد القروض 80% من القروض اللي اجت في البداية كانت لزبائن قادمين للبنك، والبنك بده يتوسع معهم، فيش ضمان كافي يبعثهم عن طريق الصناديق أو عن طريق المشاريع. اليوم 80% من المشاريع هي زبائن جداد للبنك، وهذا الشيء المهم اللي حققته صناديق القروض والمشاريع، لأنه بدك تتوصل دائما لزبائن جداد، وبدك دائما توسع الماركت تبعك. فكانوا عدد 315. وهي كمان مرة التوزيع حسب المناطق. جربنا كثير كمان انه غزة تكون من ضمن المناطق المغطاة، لكن يعني لصعوبة الموضوع في اكتيفيتيز بغزة، بس طبعا مش بالمستوى المطلوب. حسب القطاعات الاقتصادية، وإذا بنيجي نطلع على الديستريبيوشن هذا بنلاقي انه كثير قريب لكيف توزيع القطاعات الاقتصادية في الاقتصاد الفلسطيني. يعني تريدينج بياخذ الشير الكبير. ثاني اكبر شيء كان عندنا السيرفيسز، وثالث اكبر شيء المانيفاكتشرنج. وهذا بيعكس واقع الاقتصاد الفلسطيني. أوطى شيء كان عندنا الاكسبورت والإمبورت والإديوكيشن والمايننج. طبعا كجارانتي سكيمز بنقدر احنا نركز اكثر على قطاعات مهمشه، ممكن يعني في انسنتيفز معينه بتضغط على البنوك وتركز على قطاعات مهمشه. جربنا كثير انه تكون نسبه الزراعه اكثر، بس طبعا الزراعه من القطاعات اللي بتنعد انها ريسكي، فكانت دائما نسبتها متواضعه. بالنسبه للتوزيع لكيف القروض انعطت، كان عندنا 1167 لفيكس اسيتس و1866 لوركينج كابيتال، وكان في تريد فاينانس 82 قرض. بالنسبه للوركينج كابيتال طبعا هي الاحتياجات العاديه لاي شركه، تمويل فجوه، تمويل راس المال العالي لتعيش البضاعه. الفيكس اسيتس كان عندنا كثير، مثلا شراء ماكينات، توسع، ريديكوريشن مثلا المصانع. فلقينا انه طبعا بالاوقات المنيحه الفيكس اسيتس بتزيد عددها، بالاوقات الصعبه تلاقي البزنسز بس بدها تسلك حالها فبياخذوا بس قروض لوركينج كابيتال. هي التوزيع 3115 قرض، 77 منها ستارت اب، 301 قروض مخططه. فنسبه الرفض بالجارانتي سكيمز هو واطي، من مره نسبه الرفض مش عاليه. وعدد القروض اللي تسكر 1475 تسكر، يعني فولي ريبيد ما طلعش منه ولا شيء. واللون لوس ريشيو around 2% for the two guarantees هلا بنيجي على النيدز. بالنسبه للاساميز شو لما فكرنا ايش الشغلات اللي بدنا نشتغل عليها؟ هلا بدنا نقسم اساميز شو متطلباتهم، قطاع البنوك شو متطلباتهم، الريجوليترز سلطه النقد شو متطلباتها، والحكومه شو متطلباتها، ونشوف كيف تدرس كل واحد لحاله. طبعا الاساميز هم بحاجه بحاجه لسيرفيسز من البنوك، والبنوك عاده السيرفيسز تبعتها موجهه للمؤسسات والمنشات الكبيره. مثلا كاش مانجمنت، تريد بيلز، ديسكاونتنج، هذه الشغلات اللي بحاجه لها الاساميز. الاساميز بحاجه لبزنس ادفايزري سيرفيسز. بفلسطين ما في عندنا هذه السيرفيسز، يعني اذا بزنس بده حدا يساعده يسوي بده يكبر، بده يدرس سوق معين، بده يدخل في مجالات معينه، ما فيش عندنا الادفايزري سيرفيسز اللي بتساعد هذه المنشات حدا يفكر معها some sort of consultancy. هذا الشيء مش موجود عندنا بفلسطين، ولما تسوي دراسه لقوا انه كثير من الاساميز بتقول انه احنا بحاجه لمساعده لحدا يساعدنا في هذا المجال. طبعا الشغله الثالثه اللي احنا كصناديق ضمان اشتغلنا عليها هي انه يكون في ستاف خصوصي للاساميز فاهمين احتياجات السوق المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، يعرفوا يتعاملوا معهم، يعرفوا ايش البرودكتس اللي بدهم اياها، ويعرفوا كيف هذا السكتور بده يتطور. بالنسبه للريجوليترز بحاجه يعني من الشغلات اللي طبعا نطلع عليها انه لازم يكون في سترونج ريسك مانجمنت، ولازم انه يكون في انسنتفز للبنوك. اذا احنا بدنا نشتغل نطور قطاع المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه رح يكون في مسؤوليه على كل الجهات، وطبعا الاساميز في عليهم مسؤوليه وفي عليهم شغلات لازم يسووها ورح اطرقها بالسلايد اللي جاي. بس كمان من الشغلات اللي احنا شايفينها انه سلطه النقد كريجوليتر في شغلات تسويها انه تحفز الاقرار للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. لما البنك بيصير يطلع يقول لا انا بدي اتوجه بهذا الاتجاه لتمويل المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، لانه انا شايف انه في تشجيع، في انسنتفز كفايه انه امشي بهذا المجال. وطبعا بنشوف انه سلطه النقد بتقدر تلعب دور مهم انه تساعد في البوليسي ناشونال بوليسي للاساميز. هلا الحكومه طبعا كل ما كان في بزنسز اكثر والسمول ميديم انتربرايزز حسب الاحصائيات الموجوده بيقولوا انه السمول ميديم انتربرايزز بيساهموا 80% من العماله الموجوده في القطاع الخاص. فكل ما كان عندنا بزنسز اكثر معناته احنا هدول بيساهموا بالعماله، خلق فرص عمل، بيحدوا من البطاله، بتساعد طبعا بيدفعوا تاكسز هدول، كل هذا بيساعد. وكمان واحدة من الشغلات انه الحكومه لازم اذا بتقدر تخلق بادجت زي ما حكى الدكتور سلام فياض انه لازم يكون في يخلق هالكومبتيتفنس ايدج. اذا في مؤسسات تساعد المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه انه تخلق هالايدج هذا اللي مطلوب عشان ينافسوا ويكبروا. احنا حطينا 4 recommendations، 4 sets of recommendations، لكل جهه كان في recommendation خاصه لها. بالنسبه للبنوك انه يكون في strategic focus على الاساميز. كيف يعني strategic focus؟ انه يكون في برنامج خصوصي في البنك لتمويل المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، ومش بس انه والله دخل زبون هذا الزبون مشروع صغير متوسط وجاب لي الضمانات اللي بدي اياها وجاب لي بيانات ماليه انه بعطيه، لا، نحكي على فوكس انه يكون في موظفين خصوصي للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، هدول الموظفين يكونوا مدربين على تمويل المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه وكيف يتعاملوا معهم، ويكون عندهم تارجت للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. مش رح يكون في فوكس على الاس ام ايز. البنوك اللي ركزت وسوت فوكس بالاس ام ايز لقوا انه الاس ام ايز هي المحافظ الاس ام ايز كانت محافظ مربحه. ما بضبط انه نعطي قرض وقرضين وثلاثه، بدك تبني محفظه، بدك توصل مرحله معينه من هاي المحفظه عشان تقدر تسوي الريتيرن اللي انت بدك اياه. طبعا لازم يكون في continuous training، يعني الاستراتيجي تبعتنا اس ام ايز ونخلق دوائر مختصه او موظفين مختصين بالاس ام ايز. بالتالي التدريب بده يكون مركز بالبنوك على كيفيه تمويل المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. الشغله الثالثه لازم يكون في برودكت خصوصي للاس ام ايز، يعني نشوف ليش احتياجات هذا القطاع والبرودكت يكون خصوصي كيف انه احنا تو ادريس النيدز تبعتهم. وهون بحب اذكر انه احنا بصناديق ضمان القروض واحده من الشغلات اللي اشتغلنا عليه التريد فاينانس لاين، وكان برودكت علاجي كان للاس ام ايز. في برودكت ثاني كمان عمال بنشتغل عليه اللي هو البيلز ديسكاونتنج، يعني مثلا اذا مشروع صغير عنده شيكات ممكن يتم خصم هذه الشيكات. طبعا بالنسبه للريجوليترز احنا بنطلب انه يكون في ديفينيشن خصوصي للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. وليش بنسمي الديفينيشن يعني ايش اهميه الديفينيشن؟ اهميه الديفينيشن انه احنا نقدر نمشي ببوليسي معينه باستراتيجيه معينه عشان نرتقي في هذا القطاع. طبعا صار في ديفينيشنز بالسنه، كان في عده ديفينيشنز لكيف بنعرف في المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، ولكن بدنا ديفينيشن اكثر يتطابق مع كمان كيف البنوك بتشتغل. كل بنك عنده الديفينيشن تبعه، في بنوك بتقول انا الديفينيشن تبعي باي اماونت، اي قرض تحت ال $200,000 مثلا بيكون اس ام اي، او اذا كان السيلز هالقد او اذا كان الكابيتال هالقد. احنا بالنهايه عشان نرتقي بالسكتر ككل لازم يكون في عندنا ديفينيشن واضح، كل البنوك تستعمل نفس الديفينيشن عشان سلطه النقد تقدر تحسب كيف التطور صار في موضوع المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه، وهل احنا بحاجه الى يعني تغيير الخطه انه نرتقي بهذا السكتر. وجانب عمل على الديفينيشن من جمعيه البنوك. طبعا الشغله الثانيه اللي الريجوليترز بيقدروا يسووها كمان، وطبعا هذه راح تكون نحكي فيها بجلسه الريكومنديشنز، نحكي عن الجنرال ريزيرف ريكوايرمنت للاس ام ايز. اذا احنا بدنا نطور الاس ام ايز لازم يكون هدول الاس ام ايز عشان البنوك تركز عليهم، بدها تلاقي انه هدول المشاريع مربحه اكثر لها. واحنا طلبنا انه يصير في شيء بموضوع الجنرال ريزيرف ريكوايرمنت اللي هو المخصص العام اللي بيتخذ على كل المحفظه، اذا ممكن يصير في شيء بالنسبه للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. طبعا بس يكون عندنا ديفينيشن وبس البنوك تاخذ الانسنتفز، بدنا نصير تو مونيتور البروجرس، نقول والله احنا السنه كان عندنا تمويلات للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه بقيمه معينه، السنه الجايه بدنا نرفعها، وايش الاساليب اللي نسويها عشان نرفع هذه النسبه. والشغله الاخيره انه لازم يكون في كوميتي، لجنه معنيه في متابعه التوصيات، ولجنه معنيه بمتابعه امور المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه اذا احنا بدنا شايفينها بفلسطين كقطاع مهم وهو القطاع اللي بيستند عليه الاقتصاد. لازم يكون في لجنه من البراكتيشنرز، الناس اللي بتشتغل في المجال، انه نضلنا نفكر ونطور ايش الشغلات اللي لازمنا عشان نتوصل لمشاريع اكثر. طبعا بالنسبه للحكومه في ريكومنديشنز، واحده من الريكومنديشنز طبعا اللي هي التسجيل. اذا احنا بدنا المشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه يكون في تسجيل اكثر لها، المفروض انه يكون التسجيل مور سمبليفايد، طريقه سهله للتسجيل. وفي محلات طبعا احنا اللي ون ستوب شوب، يعني انه بمستقبلها. تاكس سمبليفيكيشن واحدة من الشغلات اللي كنا نحكي أنا وجون عليها ونفكر كيف في اس كوربوريشن بأمريكا إنه الكوربوريشن تتسجل بعدين في فلات في عليها مثلا $16000 مثلا ايش ما بيسووا والانكم بعدين على الاونرز ايش بيسووا الاونرز بصير في بدفعوا تاكسز. فكل ما كانت التاكس سيستم مور سمبل فور اس ام ايز كمان منيح انه هم راح يقدموا وراءهم للضريبه مش داعي انه يتهربوا. والشغله الاخيره انه يكون في تاكس انسنتيف. التاكس انسنتيف مش بالضروره بس ينعطى للاستثمارات الكبيره، لازم يكون في تاكس انسنتيف للمشاريع الصغيره والمتوسطه. هذه هي في متناول الايد اللي معه $50,000 يفتح فيهم مشروع ممكن يكون في تاكس انسنتيف للمشاريع الصغيره مش شرط ولا بالضروره انه الانسنتيف سكيم هاي وقوانين تشجيع الاستثمار تروح بس للمستثمرين الكبار. من ناحيه الاس ام ايز كمان عليهم مسؤوليه، كثير مرات بقول لك الاس ام ايز انا رحت على البنك اخذ قرض والبنك ما اعطانيش. طبعا اليوم البانكينج سيستم عندنا عمال بيشتغل بطريقه من ناحيه التمويل كثير احسن من قبل، فرص التمويل متاحه اكثر من قبل، بس كمان الاس ام ايز مطلوب منهم وفي عليهم مسؤوليات. واحده من هذه المسؤوليات انه يصيروا يفرجوا للبنوك انه انا عندي تسجيل عمالي بسجل ايش مبيعاتي ايش علي مصاريف النت بروفيت، لانه البنك اذا بده يعطي قرض وبده يخفف موضوع الضمانه وبده يطمئن هاي المعلومات مهمه بتفيد البنك انه ياخذ قرار. لما بيجي معظم الاس ام ايز بيقول لك احنا طب ما هي هذه الشركه خاصه وانا ما بديش اصرح ما بدي اعطي بيانات، كيف البنك بده يتصرف مع هذه المنشاه؟ فبالتالي لو احنا بنقدر نوضع خطه مثلا ل5 سنين انه خلال هذه الفتره تبلش البنوك تطلب بيانات ماليه مختصره سمبليفايد فاينانشال ريبورتنج، بس الكل البنوك المفروض تجيبها. يعني اذا ما طلبتش من الكل بيجي يكون كاستمر عند بنك معين ممكن البنك يطلب منه فاينانشال ريبورت بس البنك الثاني ما يطلبش منه بياخذ من البنك اللي ما طلبش منه. بس اذا كل البنوك بلشت تضغط انه لا احنا بدنا شويه فاينانشال ترانسبيرنسي، والفاينانشال ترانسبيرنسي هاي مش شرط تكون in accordance with international standards. وبفتح على الستاندردز انه لازم يكون نقدر احنا نخلق او نقوم ستاندردز ايش المطلوب من الاس ام ايز تو ريبورت تو اس عشان احنا ناخذ المينيموم طبقيه منهم. الشغله اللي هون لازم وسلطه النقد اشتغلت على هذا الموضوع كثير اللي هو الفاينانشال ليترسي. السكسيشن بلاننج شغله مهمه للمشاريع، فيها كثير مشاريع في فلسطين، في منها مشاريع ناجحه بس احنا ما فيش اي سكسيشن بلاننج وما فيش مأسسه لهذه المشاريع. يعني بسوى انه احنا نفكر المشاريع اللي وصلت مرحله معينه انه يكون في طريقه انها تتمأسس مش بس تضلها بايد شخص معين، طبعا هو اللي وضع حاطه بايده، بس انه ممكن يصير تفكير انه كيف هذه المؤسسات المنشآت تتمأسس عشان تستمر اكثر. والشغله الاخيره اللي مش موجوده عندنا من مره اللي هي بلانينج فور ذا فيوتشر، ما فيش اي تخطيط. تطلب مثلا لو نطلب بروجكشنز مش شغله معدومه مش موجوده، ومفروض انه شويه نفكر فورورد لوكينج. هاي المشاريع تصير تفكر شويه كيف بدها تخطط وكيف بدها تنفذ الخطط تبعها، تكون في استراتيجيات حتى من ضمن هذا الموضوع الصعب، يكون في استراتيجيات
في Q&A session بس خلص يعني آخر session. الموضوع الثالث في الجلسة الأولى استراتيجيات التصنيع المصرفي للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة تجربة بنك ستاندرد في جنوب أفريقيا تقدمها أمري بودا وهي رئيسة الخدمات المصرفية للمشاريع الصغيرة والمتوسطة في بنك ستاندرد في أفريقيا. Welcome, Amri.
His Excellency Cabinet Jana Wazir, thank you for the invitation to the IFC, thank you for the invitation as well. And dear banking colleagues, it's an honor and privilege to share your conference with you today and share some thoughts from a completely different part of the world in Africa. What I'll be sharing with you today is just briefly our philosophy around SME banking and how we approach the design of products and propositions specifically to cater for the needs of SME clients. And then I'll be sharing two very specific case studies thought to be relative to the Palestine environment. The one on access to finance and the other on specifically serving the needs of customers involved in the wholesale retail trade sector. So firstly, just some background on Standard Bank. We celebrated our 150-year anniversary last year. An organisation that's quite large in Africa, the biggest on the continent. And in terms of SME banking, we've got two operations, one based in South Africa, only looking after the South African market, and then the other serving 14 other geographies across the African continent. And that is the area I'm responsible for, so all geographies outside of South Africa. We've got about 118,000 clients, 200,000 account holders, and our liabilities and assets, depending on the exchange rate, which fluctuates quite a bit in the last couple of months, more than $800 million worth of liabilities or deposits, and more than $400 million worth of loans. I've also got 400 relationship managers spread across the 14 countries. You can see highlighted in blue where we serve SMEs specifically. So in terms of the SME market in Africa, the question of how to define the SME market has come up quite a few times this morning. And we've decided to define the SME market based on annual business turnover, not number of employees. The reason being is that we found in Africa most small businesses employ less than 5 individuals on a permanent basis. And the result of that is that if one uses a definition of number of employees, quite a lot of the small business market would be defined as micro businesses, which based on turnover, they are not. We also look very importantly at the location of the small business. We found that micro businesses tend to roam, or they tend to be from non-permanent locations, which has been quite insightful in how we design solutions for these businesses who cannot necessarily be found in the same place every day, and certainly not in exactly the same location. For the small business, we found that they tend to operate from a permanent location, but that location tends to be informal in nature, whereas the medium-sized business typically has a formal brick-and-mortar shop or plant that they operate from. What we've also found most useful is looking at the differences across that SME spectrum in terms of how businesses behave. Things that we did find is that on the micro end of the scale, if you look to the left, most of these businesses sell to end consumers. They don't have a lot of regular and frequent payments or receipts, and the education levels are typically lower compared to on the other end of the scale, the medium-sized businesses on the right, who are definitely more regular in nature when it comes to making and receiving payments. Their clients tend to be larger in size, retailers on the lower end, or even that they act for distributors or wholesalers that are larger in other countries below $5 million, depending on the nature of the country. And also in SME, similar in Africa, similar to what we heard here in Palestine this morning, 95% of businesses being categorized as SME. In Africa, that's 99% of businesses on the continent are SME businesses. And yes, it's true that SMEs can contribute greatly to GDP growth, but they're also a major contributor in terms of the working adult population and providing income opportunities for individuals. In some of our African markets, up to 70% of the working adult population are involved in small business, and that's so really important. If we move on to just look at our philosophy around SMEs, we believe that it's a segment that requires a very simple customer value proposition and products, but that you need a large number of clients to actually make this segment profitable. And I will illustrate in a few more slides how we've done that. The next slide, if you look at the triangles on the left and the triangles on the right, really illustrates, so these two, really illustrates the challenge we face as SME bankers. You've got your lowest profitability customers in terms of the business market, demanding the greatest level of service and hand-holding and relationship management. And that's been the biggest challenge we've had to overcome at Standard Bank. And how do you overcome it is the two triangles in the middle. You need a lot of clients and a very simple proposition. And as far as possible, the proposition and products need to be automated where possible to get economies of scale and low cost per client. In terms of our customer value proposition, just summarizing it on the page, we've got three very different approaches to the sizes of different businesses within the SME spectrum. So at the micro enterprise level, our focus is very much on assisting clients to receive money and assisting clients to pay money. When it comes to the small business, it's about helping the business operate on a day-to-day basis. So transactional solutions are exceptionally important, and then also working capital or cash flow solutions are vital to that end of the market. And the medium-sized business, our proposition is centered around enabling business growth. So focusing on a more comprehensive set of lending solutions, but then also to some of the previous speakers' comments, focusing on technical assistance, business development services, business skills training, quite important. And then to give you just a sense, before I share the case studies of the size of the business I look after, you can see the phenomenal growth we've had over the last 2 years. The SME segment now contributes 18% of our retail banking operations, almost a fifth, and hence has become an exceptionally important segment to our retail banking division. We've also seen that in many countries, our SME segment now contributes quite significantly to liabilities, and it has become a liability generator for our business banking area, which serves all businesses, small and large and corporate. We've also found to mention some examples, in Ghana, for example, 59% of our business banking revenue comes from the SME segment. And in a country like Nigeria, which is the most populous country on the African continent, 58% of our revenue comes from the SME segment. And I suppose it reflects in a way the economies which are largely driven by the SME segment. So perhaps moving into the two case studies, I suppose one can spend a lifetime looking at the challenges in SME banking and all the weaknesses within the market and how much needs to be done to overcome it. But 3 years ago at Standard Bank, we made a very conscious decision to look at the needs of SMEs fundamentally differently. And it has served us exceptionally well in designing solutions and putting practical solutions to the market in the absence of having all the infrastructure challenges, all the financial reporting challenges addressed. having access to land, things like transport systems, easy regulations. And so access to finance is indeed important, but what we've seen in Africa is that many businesses don't even have access to stable electricity supply. So for example, it's very difficult for a small business to move into the manufacturing sector if there's no stable electricity supply. So yes, access to finance is important, but it needs to go hand in hand with some of these other challenges that SMEs face. So what have we done to create greater access to finance? Firstly, just touching on some of the challenges that I have not yet mentioned, is in Africa we find that there's not a lot of credit bureaus, and at least not consistently across all African countries. We found that in many cases, the risk guarantee schemes that were in place did not really serve the market well and was misaligned to the core needs that SMEs had. A big insight for us was the lack of collateral and the lack of financial statements amongst SMEs. And rather than trying to force the market to adopt these practices, get collateral, have financial statements, we decided to design a solution that does not require either of those two factors. What we've also learned in spending time with small businesses is that access to finance is indeed important, but getting access to finance quickly was even more so important. Small businesses were telling us that they have brilliant business opportunities, but often it takes 2 weeks to a month to approve an application to finance, and by that time the opportunity for the business passed. So through our analysis and research with SMEs, we realized that if we could provide access to finance quickly, SMEs were indeed willing to pay a price premium for that quick access. In terms of the solution we developed, it's an unsecured lending solution, like I mentioned, to serve working capital needs, and it does not require any collateral, any guarantees, or any financial statements. What we do is we use a business questionnaire, and we've done more than 30,000 of these across the different African countries where we have operations, and that allows us to assess out of a group of applicants who are more likely to repay the loan and who's least likely to repay the loan, which help us differentiate risk amongst all the applicants. We've also, at the same time, reduced the account opening requirements for loans and for current accounts. So it was no sense to have a different evaluation approach. We also had to be faster and quicker in the way we do things. And therefore we simplified a lot of our requirements, shortened our application forms. To give you a sense, they used to be 19 pages for a small business. They're now less than 2 pages for a small business. And then we re-engineered all our processes to make sure we were as efficient as possible. We also changed our sales approach fundamentally to serve small businesses. We realized that we couldn't sit in bank branches waiting for SMEs to leave their businesses and come to our bank. We had to take banking to them, and we had to take the application process to them to make access to finance as accessible as possible for them. We've also simultaneously, since launching the lending solution, realized that there are many other SME needs which we weren't meeting in the past. And a good example of that would be some of the insurance needs that small businesses face. So through offering them access to finance, they told us about some of the other needs they have, and we've been able to develop products and solutions for that. A good example is a fire policy, where businesses may lose their entire stock if a fire happens within the area where they operate or within their business premise itself. And then to give you a sense of the results to date, our loan approval processes from time of application to disbursement is less than 3 days. I've already mentioned we've reduced our application forms significantly. To date, we've disbursed just over 20,000 loans. This is still a bit outdated, and the average loan size is around $7,000, so competing with many microfinance institutions. And the total portfolio, is sitting at around $125 million today, and the outstanding book is about half of that. And perhaps some of the lessons we've learned in providing access small businesses are not salaried employees. So by getting access to finance, they're actually able to increase their income and repay loans effectively, unlike in the salaried world where people have to repay greater debts within the same level of income flow. And then lastly, we've completely underestimated the velocity of business growth as a result of access to finance. So not only were people able to access finance and repay their loans, but the level of business complexity increased substantially, and as a bank, we've got a responsibility to help businesses navigate through that increased complexity. But then also, the businesses had far greater needs than what we ever anticipated. We used to get excited 9 years ago when I started SME banking at Standard Bank about a cross-sell ratio of 2. Today, with these clients, a typical cross-sell ratio would be 4 to 5 financial products, which from a profitability perspective is a completely different scenario. And we can show the video. Thank you.
اسمعوا الشباب يكتبوا على الابلكيشن.
Okay, maybe let's leave the video clip and we can always show it during coffee time or something.
كمان مرة أيوة صح.
صوت في إضاءة صوت.
Computers. That is bigger trucks and lots of long distance cross
So that was the first case study on how we provide greater access to finance. And the reason why I'm playing the clip in the middle was really to give you a sense of the wholesale retail trade sector in Africa. It looks like very bustling and very chaotic, but indeed it's the biggest sector on the continent and also the fastest growing sector on the African continent. And what we find is that a lot of small businesses choose this sector because it has low barriers to entry. You don't need a lot of capital to start up in this sector. And what we have found is that it's a critical sector for economic development. Businesses start in the retail wholesale trade sector, buying and selling finished products, and then grow over time to actually start manufacturing themselves. We've also found that this sector, and the reason why we focus on these trader markets, is that it provides an entry point into many other economic sectors. So, for example, agricultural producers bring their goods to traders and it's distributed through the wholesale retail trade sector. We found that when you have a lot of retail shops, typically you would find transport services around that, you would find hotel and accommodation services, catering services, restaurants around those shops, and one would also find telecommunications around those shops. So the retail wholesale trade sector for us has not only been a great entry point into other sectors, it forms part of a greater value chain, and it's certainly also been a sector that gives unprecedented access to a large number of SMEs. One would find that typically in most towns and cities, your retail wholesale businesses are located in a small geography close to each other, which makes the distribution footprint required by banks to serve SME markets much, much simpler and easier. We design propositions by looking at 4 different types of elements and inputs. The first is market insights, what's happening in the external market. The second is customer insights. We do a lot of customer surveys to actually understand the needs of SMEs. Then thirdly, we look at our own data and information, and we also look at the information publicly available around our competitors. And combining these 4 different insights allow us to design products and propositions which specifically meet the needs of SMEs. I think you've got a copy of the presentation in your packs, so you can look at the slides in greater detail. Then secondly, we found that traditional approaches to market research does not serve us well in emerging markets. So what we'd much rather do these days is we actually spend time as leadership and directors within Standard Bank in businesses, listening to businesses and understanding their needs. And we found that far more useful than fancy survey reports, which we tend to pay for historically. What I found very useful as a head of an SME area is actually taking the most senior decision makers in the bank from credit and business to meet with our clients. Found that completely changes their perceptions around opportunities in the market and the opportunities surrounding SMEs. And it's been a great source of support when it comes to getting additional investment approved for our SME banking division. We found also that through this research, common structures exist across many towns, many cities and many countries, which has helped us to design a proposition that's 90% the same for the entire continent, with differences catering for the nuances in every country. And the proposition you can look at in greater detail at your own time, but essentially what we found is that accessibility is very important. So simple processes, easy to understand, easy to complete. We found that proximity is exceptionally important. Small businesses are often single-owner businesses and can't leave their shops to go do banking. So we had to bring banking closer to them. And we've done that through 2 things. Small branches, 20 square meters in size, but having many of those in areas where there are many SMEs. And then secondly, by appointing relationship managers who are able to serve the small business at their place of business. And then the last one is around convenience, which has a lot to do with extended opening hours for bank branches. We found that in many cases our branches opened after shops opened and closed before shops closed. So we then to quickly just show you the financial results of that. This is a branch in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, which was making a loss in March 2011. I actually went to the branch with the intention to close the branch because it has been making a loss for 3 years. We changed the focus from focusing on salaried individuals to focusing on SMEs, and changed a few other things, introduced the correct products to serve the needs of SMEs. And as you can see, the profitability of this branch has increased dramatically. So has our assets and liabilities within that branch, and it is now the second most profitable branch on the African continent for Standard Bank out of 300 branches. So definitely a success story. And to show it visually, here you can see the branch in 2011, very empty, costing us a lot of money, and here you can see all the SMEs using it just over a year later. And then another example out of Malawi, a branch in Lilongwe, similar story, changed the focus from salaried individuals to focusing on SMEs and introduced products to suit the needs of SMEs, a dramatic difference. And I think what is of particular relevance is here, the light blue bars are the level of deposits last year versus now. And then also here you can see lending, almost no lending was done to SMEs in that branch. But by clearly changing the focus of the branch and the branch manager, suddenly lots of lending happening. And so in summary, a few lessons from my side and recommendations in terms of SME banking. I think first and foremost is that SME banking can be a very lucrative market for a retail bank. And like I've explained, in our case, it's now a fifth of our retail banking revenues. So indeed, a market that now gets a very different level of attention and focus within the group compared to 3 years ago. Secondly is that a focus on SME banking, and very few people in the banking world speak about this, but a focus on SME banking can dramatically improve branch profitability. And in many cases, staff costs and branch physical infrastructure costs are two of the greatest expenses to a retail bank. And SME banking, in our case, has taken over a lot of that cost and turned it into profits for us. The third, and it's been mentioned as well before, is that it is a unique segment and it does require a unique approach. I once heard a very great comment that SME banking is not microfinance plus a few zeros or corporate banking minus a few zeros. It is indeed a different segment, and these customers doesn't require the same products as a corporate banking client or as a personal banking client. And that's a mistake we've traditionally made, is we've tried to just slightly adapt the products we already had to serve the needs of SMEs. But by actually completely designing products suited to the market, we've had far greater results. And then lastly, is that the SME market is definitely a driver of economic growth.